With version 6.3 drip marketing and finalized banners now revealed, it's finally time to analyze each upcoming character, their pull value, advantages, and disadvantages, so you can decide what's best for your account. We'll start with Neuvillette. We won't go too deep here since most of you already know him very well, but a lot has changed recently. His current best-in-slot teams are Burgeon setups with Durin and Lauma, followed by Hyperbloom teams with Ineffa and Lauma. He also still has solid freeze teams with Escoffier and Sitlali, as well as traditional hypercarry setups using Salonen and Kazuha. However, when we look at raw numbers, his hypercarry damage no longer competes with newer DPS characters. At peak performance, his damage sits around 105 to 110,000 DPS. And honestly, that number is somewhat misleading, because almost any DPS paired with Lauma and Ineffa can reach similar damage. That said, Neuvillette is still the most flexible DPS in the game by far. He has the highest number of viable teams, and with proper charged attack canceling and good teammates, he can comfortably clear Abyss without issues. So is he worth pulling right now? We'll come back to that shortly.
Before we go any further, quick reminder about how to get maximum discounts on your top-ups. Loot Bar is offering massive deals every time a new banner drops, with multiple limited time offers and banner-specific top-ups. Just use my Loot Bar link in the description or pinned comment to get extra discounts and save more Primo Gems for all these upcoming banners.
Next, let's talk about the second rerun character, Ineffa. She is currently the best Electro character in the game. She provides an extremely strong shield alongside massive off-field damage, which is especially impressive considering she is a defensive unit. In terms of teams, she is insanely flexible. Her best team is obviously with Flynn's, where she is his undisputed best support. Beyond that, she works extremely well with Veresa, granting access to Lunar Charge. She also pairs with Neuvillette in both Hyperbloom and Lunar Charge setups. Additionally, she works with Pyro DPS units like Mavuika and Arlecchino in Overload and Overvape teams. She is also the best Hyperbloom Electro unit in the game, outperforming Kuki thanks to her shield, stronger off-field damage, and better Electro application. What makes Ineffa truly broken comes down to 3 key points. First, she grants direct access to Lunar Charge for any Electro DPS, massively boosting overall team damage. Second, she is a shielder, which is huge, since Electro has very limited defensive options outside of Kuki. And third, she is a Nod-krai unit, which allows her to unlock Ascendant Gleam for even higher damage ceilings. Looking at the future, her value remains extremely strong. She's expected to be the best off-field Electro unit alongside Columbina, working with almost every DPS in the game. In fact, with Columbina, she pushes many DPS characters close to or even past the 100,000 DPS mark. Even characters like Raiden and Sino benefit massively from this pairing, which shows just how strong she is in the current meta. That said, she is not perfect, especially when we consider how stacked these banners are. We'll get back to that.
Now let's move on to the new unit, Columbina. She is joining as a Hydro support and sub DPS. She provides consistent Hydro application, strong off-field damage through her skill, and buffs Lunar Reactions in multiple ways. We won't go deep into her kit here since we already made a full dedicated guide, so make sure to check that out. What's important is that she can trigger all currently available Lunar Reactions. This means she works both in Lunar teams and non-Lunar teams, while also granting access to Lunar Reactions for older DPS units. Her best-in-slot team is with Zibai in Lunar Crystallized setups, which are currently shaping up to be the second strongest teams in the game, right behind Mavuika. She also has insanely strong teams with Flynn's and Neuvillette, just slightly below Zibai teams. On average, Columbina provides around a 20,000 DPS increase to every Nod-krai DPS, which is massive. Outside of Nod-krai carries, she works extremely well with Veresa, Ineffa, and Eonsan, granting Lunar Charge access and Hydro application. She also has teams with Neuvillette and even Shaska, enabling Lunar Reactions alongside Ineffa. Right now, she is shaping up to be the strongest off-field unit in the entire game. Her damage rivals Duran, and her ability to buff Lunar Reactions while enabling them for older DPS units gives her insane long-term value. She boosts nearly every DPS in the game, which makes her very close to a must-pull. Speaking of must-pulls, let's talk about Zibai. She is shaping up to be one of the strongest DPS characters ever released. She is a lunar crystallized DPS who scales primarily with defense. Her core teams revolve around Columbina since lunar crystallize requires hydro to function. She pairs extremely well with Geo supports like Goro, Shilonen, Yunjin, Albedo, and even Kachina. Ideally, you want to run her with both Geo and Hydro units to fully activate her passives for extra defense and buffs. However, unlike Skirk, she does not lose massive damage by adding a non-Hydro or non-Geo unit. You can even add units like Duran without completely breaking her damage output, which makes her surprisingly flexible. We've already made a full in-depth guide for Zibai as well, so make sure to check that out. Now that we've covered the major highlights for each character, let's move into pull value and banner priority.
Starting with Columbina, she is a must-pull. Considering her damage, buffs, and overall impact on the current meta, she's clearly a long-term unit who synergizes extremely well with both current and future meta characters. This alone makes her a must-have for almost every account. I won't waste too much time here. She should be first priority for everyone, regardless of account stage or progression. Not only does she work with all current and future lunar DPS units, but she also has strong potential with non-lunar characters since she can trigger lunar reactions by herself. This makes her, in my opinion, the best Hydro unit in the game right now. Moving to the second priority unit, this comes down to either Ineffa or Zibai. For players who already own Flints, Ineffa is a must-pull, without any doubt. She is his best support and massively increases his team performance. However, for players who do not own Flints or are planning to pull him on a future rerun, Zibai becomes an excellent option instead. Zibai is currently shaping up to be the second best DPS in the game after Mavuika, and Columbina is her best in-slot support. So if you're already pulling Columbina, then Zibai becomes a very strong DPS choice. This is especially important when we look at Geo DPS options. Unlike characters such as Flints or Veresa, Zibai has no real alternatives in the Geo DPS role. If you want a top-tier Geo DPS, she's essentially a must-pull. Now coming to Neuvillette. Honestly, outside of very new players, especially those under adventure rank 40 or 50, Neuvillette is much harder to justify. Yes, he can carry accounts in the early game very comfortably, but when we compare his personal damage to newer DPS characters, he falls significantly behind, and this gap is only going to get worse over time. If your main goal is clearing endgame content like Abyss efficiently, Neuvillette should be your lowest priority among these banners. One last important thing to keep in mind, version 6.3 banners are insanely stacked, and many players might feel tempted to go all in. However, reruns for characters like Skirk, Escoffier, and Mavuika are very likely coming in the next few versions. Because of that, planning your pulls from now is extremely important. I hope this video helped you decide who to prioritize. Make sure to check out the channel for more guides like this. Until then.